There's nothing wrong with me.
Beverly. Beverly. Where is Beverly?
Welcome to Where's Beverly, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Adrienne. Today we're discussing the unlikely dark horse darlings of the Star Trek universe, Laris and Zhaban.
So this is actually a request from a listener, Melissa, and Adrienne, please say her Instagram handle.
Melissa Unkraut
said, and I quote, "I could listen to you talk about Laris and Zhaban for hours." So that's what we're going to do. Welcome to this 8-hour episode of Where's Beverly?
We hope you're ready for it. So Sophia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Before starting recording this, I was eating a Cadbury mini egg, and we almost had to cancel recording this episode because it took too long for me to eat it.
Was it like a Cadbury cream egg?
No, it's like I'm looking at the bag now. Cadbury mini eggs. It's like it's like a little package, and you have like the tiny ones, but they have the little candy coating, and it gets stuck in your teeth.
Oh, I don't like that. I'm not about that life.
No. How are you?
I'm very good. I just had old people dinner at 5:30 with my husband. And so he's been gone for a couple of days for work. And despite the fact that we on a regular basis spend months apart every year, I don't like it when he's gone. So we had some shrimp and grits when he got back and watched a Seinfeld. And it was delicious
I'm sorry.
and very nice.
You said shrimp and grits and then just like kept on going like that was just like a normal thing. Can you
It is.
what is grits?
Okay, so grits are like a type of corn product. I'm going to Google exactly what they are. Grits, what are? Okay, grits are made from ground corn, typically from less sweet starchy varieties, often referred to as dent corn. So it's similar to, have you ever had polenta?
Yes.
It's, okay, please no one come for me. I'm generalizing. I'm making a comparison. It's basically polenta. So it's from ground corn, and you add water and, in my case, like chicken stock and butter and milk and cheddar to it. And you have this like lovely corn porridge is not a good word for this because it's a dinner, not a breakfast. And then you saute onions and shrimps in a seasoning mix, usually a Cajun seasoning. But today I did chili powder, cayenne, salt and pepper. And then you top the grits with your shrimp and onion mixture.
So I learned something today, because do you want to know, I've heard like grits a lot. Want to know what I thought grits were?
Yes.
French fries, but tinier?
Oh, that's really cute. No, that's not what they are. But I like that idea.
Like little potato sticks. Like you have like little
No.
so they're not fully fries because they're tiny, but they're like little potato sticks.
So now I'm thinking about those potato chips, like matchstick potato chips.
Hickory sticks.
No, matchstick potato chips.
Hickory sticks.
We're from two different countries, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome to Where's Beverly, a culinary podcast.
A culinary podcast where we argue about the definitions of foods.
Grits are tiny little potato sticks.
It's ground corn made into a porridge.
Why is it okay? So again, do not come for either of us. Then why? What is the difference between polenta and grits?
I don't actually know. Okay, so here's what I think. I think polenta is made from yellow corn, and grits are technically made from hominy. Grits versus polenta. Let's Google it. Polenta comes from flint corn, which is coarser and holds a firmer texture, while dent corn, or hominy, I was right, used for grits produces a finer consistency. While it isn't the case across the board, corn used to create polenta is generally yellow and grits are generally white.
I learned something new today.
So there you go. So we would like to make a case for the court today as to why Laris and Zhaban are some of the best characters Star Trek, and dare I say it, all of television has ever seen.
Hear, hear.
I mean, where do we even begin?
They're murder parents.
They are. Define for the court and the jury what murder parents are.
Laris and Zhaban. Like, if you look up, don't look up murder parents, because you're probably going to get some other stuff. But if you were in a perfect world, Laris and Zhaban would be there, because they have undoubtedly murdered a lot of people through their work in the Tal Shiar. But they also, and I'm even knowing what happens in season 2 of Picard, I'm still going to say this, they're Picard's parents. They're everyone's parents.
When you Google murder parents, you just have a picture of them in like a standard prom pose, offering you bread and disruptors.
Yes.
You've heard of bread and circuses, ladies and gentlemen. Let's introduce you to bread and disruptors.
They're the mom and dad of the Star Trek universe. All, dare I say, more so than Picard era Riker and Troy.
And that's really saying something coming from us.
Like Picard era Riker and Troy are really up there in terms of like the parents of the universe, but Laris and Zhaban are slightly ahead of them. And slightly below Picard era Troy and Riker are Raffi and Picard era 7.
Yes.
As lesbian soccer moms.
And so it was really, I know we've talked about this before, but for me, it was really, really surprising when I first started watching Picard, because I was initially, my gut instinct was, I don't want new people on this show. And I was really like clenchy about it. And then within 5 minutes, by the time Zhaban was making Picard breakfast and Laris was telling him to wash his hands, I was like, new favorite people, new favorite characters in the whole universe. And then it just continued, and it never stopped, and I never stopped falling in love with them. And they are now genuinely up there for me with Troy and Beverly and O'Brien and, and Uhura. And that's it was very, very unexpected. And I don't think I was the only person that felt that way.
And two, like, the characters that you mentioned, the majority of them we got to know over like 7 seasons. And like immediately, like the first scene that Laris and Zhaban are introduced, I was like, new favorites. Like immediately. And I feel like even like looking back at a lot of the pilots of a lot of Star Trek shows, I don't think that I had such like a knee-jerk response being like babies to anyone faster than I did Laris and Zhaban.
Yeah, and for anyone listening, you can go ahead and start your drinking game. This is the first time we're going to say that we think a lot of that comes down to the brilliance of Jamie McShane and Orla Brady and how they portrayed these characters. So just start your drinking game now. We're probably going to say this a lot.
Well, like, it's without a doubt, like, their portrayal is incredible. Like, I feel like the writing for them was excellent, but the precise combination of like domesticity and romance with like a healthy dose of like espionage and like murder peppered in, I really attribute to Jamie McShane and Orla Brady. Because they're very specific people.
Yeah. And I really want to believe, I have no proof of this, I really want to believe that they were like behind the scenes being like, okay, so this is what we did this morning before we shot this scene, like as the characters. And so because they sort of built in, I think, like their own ideas about things, I want to believe that they did this, and then that really informed and really brought a lot to these characters, because despite the fact that we see them in, honestly, I mean, I haven't timed it, but I don't think they could possibly be in more than a total of 30 minutes of the entire show, like on screen. And yet I feel like I know more about these characters than I do about characters that I've seen for seasons in shows. And again, that is the writing, it's the costuming, it's all of that. But I really think it's what they bring to it that is just they feel like such complete individuals. And that's honestly a surprisingly rare thing in television.
Absolutely. Like, these are characters that didn't just wake up one day on a page. Like, these are characters, looking at them, you know that they have a history, right? Like they were created new for the show, but like more than any other, I think, new character introduced, maybe Raffi. Maybe I can Raffi as well, like her backstory and stuff, like was so seeing her as like a new character. I'm like, I believe that you weren't just like created yesterday. Like, I believe that there's like so much more to you than what we're seeing. But like immediately episode 1, Laris and Zhaban, I'm like, oh yeah, they've lived. Like, there's definitely bodies under that counter. And they've also perfected a sourdough recipe.
Yeah. Before spending 5 years arguing with each other about what the correct way to do it was. Like, it's just so easy to imagine a backstory, for these people and for these characters. And the thing that really, really surprised me, because, again, we've really never seen a lot about Romulans beyond stereotypes and very two-dimensional things. And I think, we get some good stuff with the Romulans in the original series here or there. We get some really, I thought, good stuff with the Romulans with Troy in Face of the Enemy. We get some weird stuff with the Romulans in the movie Nemesis. But for all of a sudden, them to give us these characters and then make them Romulan was so interesting to me. And I think I was not the only person who, when they first showed up on screen, I thought, oh, he's got Vulcans working for him. And because of, the history and everything we'd known prior to this about the Romulans. And so to have these characters, it was such a throwing sort of like a wrench in the wheel of what we knew and what we were expecting to see. And so then not only to have these Romulans in a completely different context than we'd ever seen them before, and to be able to see them as such complete individuals, I found myself surprisingly thinking these are some of the most relatable characters I've ever seen on TV. And I don't know if that's normal. I don't know what that says about me, that I'm like, oh, these 60-year-old ex-alien assassins are super relatable, but they are. And so I wanted to ask you if you felt the same way. And if you did, how did you feel they were relatable?
Yeah, now that you mention it, like, I don't think I would have described them as like relatable prior to you saying that, but like now that you say it, like, yes, like immediately I saw them, I'm like, yeah, no, I know these people. Like like immediately. Because I feel like, and they're not archetypal characters by any means. And they're not stereotypical, they're not stock characters. However, they have enough of that familiarity that you can introduce characters that are literally ex-assassins who now work managing a vineyard and also provide security services, and somehow make that insane concept not as ludicrous as it sounds. Like, there's so many, like, how many, like, Disney Channel original movies or, like, movies are there about, like, this, like, former Marine now has to be a babysitter or a nanny. And it's like, it's a whole movie because it's this absurd concept. And the whole movie focuses on how absurd it is. And, like, Star Trek just introduced these two characters, neither of whom are portrayed by The Rock or Vin Diesel. And all of a sudden,
Thank goodness.
right? By not putting a lantern on how absurd this whole idea is, that just made them like, oh yeah, I know these people. Like, this makes sense. You don't question it till after, when you're like, wait a second. They're ex-assassins who are now just like casually baking bread in the kitchen.
Yeah. And just the simpleness and sort of like the everydayness of their relationship is something that I found myself really, really loving. And so this is where I found them to be both relatable and also really, really interesting. I don't know if we've talked on the podcast before. I suspect we have. But you and I have talked a lot about the types of romance that we're interested in seeing when we see it. We are less interested in seeing a lot of romance and more interested in seeing like lady people just be by themselves and be happy that way. But when we do see romance, what are the types of romances that we are interested in seeing? And one of those is romances between older people or people that have been together for quite some time. And this is what we get with Laris and Zhaban. And I love it so, so much. I am so maybe I'm just like a super unromantic person, but this type of portrayal of like marriage and love is like what I am here for. Just sort of the everyday domesticity of it all, the like hand on top of another hand, letting you know that I'm here with you. The looks that you give someone else that says all you need to say, no words necessary, the absolute arguments and explosions that you have, but knowing what the other person intends. And I really, really, really loved this. And I was watching it just being like from my perspective, I've been with like my partner for 17 years and which is a really long time saying that out loud. But that's how it is when you've been with someone for a really long time. Like it's not all I don't know. Like we're teenagers and we're sneaking off to the drive-through cuz it's 1950. I don't know what I'm saying, but I just really really liked this portrayal of them and I found it very very interesting. I was very invested in their relationship and I think a lot of people were. And it was because of how real it felt. It felt so, so deep and so, so real. And in not being shiny, it was real and authentic.
I couldn't agree more. Like, yeah, it just goes to show that you don't need like a 10-minute makeout session in your show to demonstrate the love two people have for each other. And I also love too, like a lot of like they don't have a lot of screen time, and a lot of the screen time that we do see with them together is them either fighting or like calling each other idiots. And in no point in that am I like, oh yeah, their relationship is on the rocks. Like even in like especially in those moments of like quote unquote conflict, I'm like, oh, these two bastards love each other.
Yeah, because that's how it is. And that's another thing. You often don't get to see two people who've been together for a long time being for lack of a better word, negative in negative situations or in conflict with each other without it being sort of hinted that this is super problematic and toxic and maybe a little bit abusive. But this is just like the reality of like having lived with this person for 20 years. Like they're going to grate on your nerves and you're going to get in fights with them. And the what I loved about it is the way they argue with each other. It's less we are angry with each other and more we have uninhibited, passionate, open communication with each other. And also, this is how we might flirt, is sort of the feeling that I get. And I love
Absolutely.
like this scene where like let's just go into the I mean, we're here, but the scene where Lara starts hinting at the Jade Bosch and then just Jaban's face that he's just like, you're a fucking idiot and I love you. And it's just like they've had this argument 1,000 times and I'm obsessed with it.
And I think the big thing too is that never in those moments do you not get anything but undying respect for each other. Like at no point do I think like, oh yeah, they're actually trying to like, really piss each other off or really like hurt the other person. It's like, no, these people are so confident in their love for one another that they can say things like this.
Yeah, and that they can have different views on things that seem that a lot of people would and I'm reading way too much into this. I'm sorry. What else did you expect? It's Where's Beverly? But this idea that, so many people think like you can't be with someone who has different religious beliefs than you or different opinions on really big things. And for some people, that's a deal breaker and that's okay. But it's not an automatic deal breaker. And if you have respect and open communication in a relationship, it's completely reasonable to have a relationship where you disagree with the other person. I don't remember what I was talking about, and even if I did, I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but one time my husband looked at me and I was telling him something and he just said, "I don't believe in that, but I believe in you." And I think like
I
that's
love
sort
that.
of what we get. Like this is kind of like the vibe that we get. And like you
Mhm.
can have those things where you have really, really differing opinions on that. We could have had an entire series of just them, and we'll talk more about that later.
Yeah, how dare you, Jamie McShane, get on another show that likely gives you more screen time. It is probably a better, schedule or fits better with your unique acting needs. How dare you do that?
We're really bitter about this, Jamie McShane. If you want to come on our show and defend yourself, please, you're welcome. You're welcome to. But
Mhm.
yeah, I refuse to
Orla
believe he's
Brady
really
can
dead.
fit her acting projects in with Picard's schedule. Why can't you?
Like, come on. Come on.
She's probably filmed like 18 independent films in between seasons 1 and 2 of Picard.
Like, we're just really, really bummed. So, for the court, why else are they the greatest of all time?
Can just like knitwear be
It's on the
a reason?
outline. It's on the outline. I typed sweaters and linen.
Like a huge like Laris and Zhaban, I think, are the reason why Romulans are now being seen so differently in like the new Trek universe. Like I think that we should give a lot of credit to those two characters for really changing how Romulans are perceived and now even portrayed. And I think a huge part of that, like we've said, Jamie McShane and Orla Brady were instrumental in this. But another big thing is the costume design, because we see Romulans in previous Trek works and it's all angles. It's just angles, angles
Angles for
everywhere.
days.
And in like the case of Face of the Enemy, a outfit that I can only describe as just couch. And we see Orla
Yeah.
Brady and Jamie McShane in like no angles, just cashmere. And you look at them and yeah, like I seeing the trailer, I was like, oh, Vulcans. Like because they don't look even remotely Romulan, and it's because of their outfits, and I love it. And also dress your characters in 3 layers of knitwear.
All the time, every day. And this was something that I wanted to ask you about because we've talked about this privately before, but I think both of us are really into wearing a lot of clothing. And I think we always have been. Like I know ever since I was a kid, I was like, how many turtlenecks can I wear? And I think you are also the same way.
I am like right now I'm wearing layers, but like at one point at work I wore my base out layers were leggings, so not tights, but like thick leggings and a tank top. Over that, a long sleeve dress, and then over that long sleeve dress, a long sleeve shirt, and then over that long sleeve shirt, a knee length cardigan. And I wore this to work, and I'm going to say mid May,
You are my hero.
and nobody was surprised.
No. No. And that's another thing that I really enjoyed. Not only did it give us this huge juxtaposition from everything that we'd ever seen from Romulans previously, but it also just made them so endearing. And also we've talked a lot about this with Seven and some of the other women in Picard, but it has been so lovely. Just like I feel like the collective feminine sigh of relief heard around the world to see all these women in this show dressed comfortably. but like they look nice. And so it was, for so long, if a woman has dressed comfortably, it was a statement about who she was as a person, right? She had let herself go, or she just had a baby, or she was old and had given up. And so to have Picard give us all these women in jumpsuits and sweaters and knitwear and linen and like pockets was so, I'm going to use the word beautiful. It was so validating and affirming to all of us who like wearing comfortable clothing and lots of sweaters because we're always cold, okay?
The freedom to just come in knowing that at any time you could take off as many as 2 layers and still be fully clothed, that freedom is revolutionary.
It really is. And how much of this, just because I'm curious about this for myself, how much of this is just our personality? Because I want to stress, we were like this before COVID. This is not like a lot of people were like, "Oh, I didn't know I could dress this way." But we thought we were like this prior to that. How much of this is our personality? And how much of it is being raised Catholic and evangelical?
Ooh, I think the answer might surprise you. I think the answer might be different for both of us. I've never really associated the way I dress with my very like I'm not sure strict, but very religious upbringing. Because like I'm the only one in my family that dresses with this many layers. So I don't actually think that it's related. I think it's probably more related to at any given point I need to have as much of my body covered as possible, because if the outside world touches me, I will evaporate. I'm Alphaba. I am like I am the Wicked Witch of the West. If the outside atmosphere touches me, I'm becoming a puddle.
I love this so much. I don't think I realized that you were really the only one in your family that was like, "Give me all of the clothes you have."
Oh yeah, like I'm like at any given point, I'm wearing a sweater in the middle of August.
That is interesting.
Because if the outside world touches me, I can't function anymore. Like
Yeah.
if a leaf touches me, like I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know, and this is something that I've asked myself for a while. I think it's probably like a combination. I think part of it is just that I'm cold a lot, like I'm really cold all the time. So I think that has a lot to do with it because I really don't like being cold and I really, really don't like being uncomfortable. And so it's just easier to wear tights and then a sweater and then a sweater on top of that. Like it just makes sense. I think part of it does probably have to do with being raised in a very strict sort of purity modesty culture where, if you showed your body, you were bad. I mean, you were like, your body was inherently bad. And so I think I think I would probably be a little bit in denial if I said that I didn't internalize some of that. And that may be part of the reason why I feel more comfortable when I'm covered. But I think it's also just that I'm cold. Like I'm from Texas and I live in Europe and I'm cold all the time. So I think it's like a nice mashup, a nice conglomeration of reasons. But yeah, sweaters and linen.
I love the headcanon that like Romulus has like a much warmer climate than Earth. And that like so like when Laris and Zhaban came to Earth, they're like, what the fuck? It's so cold here. I really like that.
Even in like the south of France in the summertime, they're just like, what the hell?
So Adrienne, what is another
Uh-huh.
reason why Laris and Zhaban are the best Star Trek characters of all time?
Okay. So I love complex characters. And I just really, really like that they are such a good example of people being allowed to be more than one thing. And you had already mentioned that they're not stock characters, which is usually a character who's just one thing or just there as a plot device. And that is not what they are at all. Although they could have very easily been. They could have very easily just been like the Romulan housekeepers who, okay, they also can protect Picard. How convenient. But I just love that they're allowed to have this, this duality and this complexity. And I wrote in my notes, you've heard of Persephone was the goddess of spring and the queen of the underworld, but I raise you Laris and Zhaban, being ex-secret police assassins and loving friends and bread bakers and flower arrangers who still hide weapons everywhere. And if this is not like multifacetedness, I don't know what is. And all I can think of is there for a while on Instagram, it was like popular, like in your bio, to put like all the things you were, right? Like husband, father, student, teacher, dog dad, and all these things. And I feel like this is the vibe. Jewelry maker that like Laris and Zhaban have. And I'm just really, really here for it. So I wanted to ask you briefly, what do you think Zhaban's Instagram bio includes?
Well, obviously, it's written by Laris, and it just says Egypt. And he doesn't know how to change it.
Oh no, that makes me so sad. But also, he secretly loves it because she did it.
And then he learned how to change it and was like, nah, I'm leaving it because she thinks that she's fucking hilarious.
Okay, this is devastating me. How dare you say this?
Zhaban is alive and well. We in this podcast we reject Picard season 2 reality and insert our own, which is Zhaban is just making bread in the kitchen, guys.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. So are there any moments that you particularly enjoyed of theirs from the show? Keep in mind there's only about 10 in total.
All of them? All
Yeah.
of the moments? But also, like, we can't talk about Laris and Zhaban without you take him with you, y'all can die together scene is, in my opinion, the best scene of season 1 of Picard, I think.
Yeah. I think it might be one of the best scenes I've seen in TV ever.
It's so, like, just the Zhaban's response to Laris just, like, being super angry and dropping the tea tray is just, like, eye roll and then immediately grabs a dustpan. Like, this is a regular Tuesday afternoon at Chateau Picard.
Yeah. And the fact that the interaction is so brilliantly written and so brilliantly acted, where he says, no one can protect you from the Tal Shiar but the Tal Shiar. Or no, I think she says that. And then he's like, yeah, exactly. We have to go with you. And then she's like, where the hell did you get that idea, you idiot? Like, as if she hadn't basically just suggested it. And then the fact that he just takes the slap, just keeps cleaning up the broken glass is just fantastic.
It's such a good scene. Do you have any other, like, standout moments, Adrienne?
I really, really like how this is not a standout moment, but I like the slow reveal that they're more than his housekeepers. I like that in the first episode, it's clear that they're just there sort of taking care of him. They're in the kitchen. They're very much his housekeepers. And then we find out that they're Romulans. And then we find out that they're Romulan refugees who've come here. And they're very sweet people. And then in episode 2, we find out they seem to know a lot about security. And they don't say they were in the Tal Shiar, but then all of a sudden they're talking about the Tal Shiar and how they had recruiters in the Tal Shiar. And it's like, wait, I'm sorry. These people wearing 8 layers of cashmere were in the Tal Shiar. Are they still in the Tal Shiar? Please, who cares about Dash and Sochi? Like, I want to know everything about these people and how they got here. And I know it was in the comic books, but I didn't know about that at the time. And then it's like, yeah, but they're ex-Tal Shiar. It's been a really long time ago. They're just into bread baking now. But then we get to episode 3, which is one of my favorite. It may be my second favorite, other than the whole you two, you can die together scene, is where Laris is upset that Picard's leaving and Zhaban brings him, he packed him a lunch. But then the Zhat Vash shows up and they just full on go into fucking badass mode. And there's like 83,000, I counted, hidden disruptors in the library. Okay. That they know where they are and they totally kick ass. And then it becomes apparent that not only are these housekeepers Romulans and Romulan refugees and Extal Shiar and his actual friends, they are like regularly keeping up on their training, and they're actually here as his security. And so that slow sort of reveal that they again are here for multiple reasons is really, really fascinating and could have been an entire series. I will like fight me. It could have been an entire show.
Yeah, like, and I think the big thing about this is I think that the writers and the producers, like the entire creative team behind Star Trek Picard, did not realize what the fan response would be to Laris and Zhaban. And it's so evident in season 2, where like obviously they couldn't get Jamie McShane because of scheduling issues, but then they were like, oh shit, like we don't really have a way to like continue to have Laris in season 2, so I guess we'll just have Orla Brady play a completely different character. Like, and she's in almost every episode. So it's so apparent that like they didn't realize that these basically one-off kind of bit characters that have like 15 minutes of collective screen time in season 1 would be such a hit.
Yeah, and what's even more fascinating is that the showrunners, I don't remember if it was Terry Matalas or Michael Chabon who ended up coming out and saying it, but they fully admitted that they brought Laris back just because the fans were like, we need more cowbell. Like, we have a fever and we need more Laris and Zhaban. Like, that's what happened. And then obviously, I guess Jamie McShane couldn't come back, but yeah. And I don't know that I've ever even heard of something happening like that, where a fan response was so, and that was, I mean, I remember getting on Twitter and on Instagram to see what other people were saying about season 1 of Picard. And it was largely just give us more Momulin and Dadulin. Like, it was like people didn't care a whole lot about anything except Laris and Zhaban. And it was really, really validating because we really loved them. And then to see that everyone else was like, excuse me, sir, can we find out more about the Extal Shiar people in the sweaters?
And it didn't surprise me. And this is what, so Adrienne, you had seen Jamie McShane in some things before.
Yes.
Watching Picard, right? You said he was in like a vampire show or something?
Yeah, he was in The Passage. He was in the show Bloodline, and he was in some other stuff that I'd seen. Like, I think he's in, oh my gosh, I want to say that he's in like Gone Girl. He's a character actor. He was actually like a crewman in an episode of Star Trek Enterprise as well. And he has shown up in a lot of different things, partially because he seems to be good at like fighting, like he's actually good at that. And so that was also just kind of a side note, a really cool thing to see him get to do some stunt work in that episode of Star Trek Picard, because he can really he's like a black belt or something. Anyway, but yeah, I'd seen him in some stuff. I really, really liked him in The Passage, even though I didn't like The Passage. I thought he was really, really good. And so, yeah, it was nice to see him, I think, get to do something that maybe he got a little bit more credit for.
Mm-hmm. And so like I don't think I had seen, or at least knowingly seen, Jamie McShane in anything before. But I was a really big Orla Brady fan before Picard. So I remember she was in the trailer. So seeing the trailer, I remember messaging Adrienne being like, oh my gosh, Orla Brady's is going to be in Star Trek Picard. This is going to be great. Because I know that like anything she's in, she just elevates it. Like she's just incredible. And I remember Adrienne responded being like, who?
Yeah. I was like, okay.
But then flash forward to like the next, when Picard airs, and then Adrienne's like, tell me more about this Orla Brady person.
I think I texted you and I was like, how the hell is the woman playing Laris like 59? I think that was the first thing. And then you were like, I'm sure you were rolling your eyes because you would have been more than happy to talk about that 6 months prior.
I am always willing to discuss Orla Brady. Like, she's just incredible in everything. So I was so excited to see her in that trailer. And now I'm even more excited that Adrienne is as obsessed with her as I am now.
I also find it interesting that she seems to have gotten a little bit of a later start and I don't really know like what the story is there, but like when you start looking at like her when she really starts showing up like in like TV projects, I think she was in like her late 30s, like when that really started happening. And so I just find that to be really, really interesting and kind of refreshing to have someone that's had a good and varied and successful career who didn't, get started on the Disney Channel. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just kind of nice. But also, a very important, serious question that I have is what kind of pact with the devil did she make to look like 25 years younger than she is? And I want to clarify, I just, for all the listeners out there, or if you haven't listened to anything else, how a woman looks is completely irrelevant, except that it's not in the society that we still live in. And so, and the whole like anti-aging industry is complete and total bullshit. Like it should really be like feeling and looking your best for like a graceful aging, because we're all aging, and like anyone that says that we're not can like go suck it. But also, there's something unnatural about this situation, and I'm just baffled by it, and I just want the answers. Like, it's not that you need to look 25 years younger than you are. I'm just it confuses me, and I want to know what the answer is.
It's to the point where a common trope in her career is the trope that like she'll be playing a character, and like Orla Brady herself is in like her like early to mid 50s, and she has like a 2-year-old child.
Yeah.
I
And
think
she's
the best Go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say, and she's also regularly cast. The men that she's cast opposite romantically are very often younger than she is, which is definitely not something that you see very often.
Yeah, it's not you, and it's never played up as, oh, she's like dating a younger man. Like it's always like implied that they're the same age, but her co-star will be like a good 15 to 20 years younger than her.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Patrick Stewart is the most age appropriate like romantic partner casting she's ever
I
gotten.
think is around the same age as
Yeah,
her.
I think Jamie McShane is too. I would say that both of them were probably, we're like really, and we're probably exaggerating a little bit because it's fun, but it's something that does seem to happen more than once. What is your favorite example of her being like fully 58 and having like a 2-year-old child?
So the best example of this, and we've talked about Into the Badlands a lot on this show. It's incredible. It's probably one of, I'm gonna say it's in my top 5 shows of all time. It's incredible. I can't recommend it enough. It's on Netflix. And Orla Brady plays this incredible character in it, like absolutely incredible. And there's a scene where she, and in the show, she has like a 26-year-old son, I think. And in this, there's a scene in a later season where she is introduced to a man played Moon, played by Sherman Augustus, who is incredible. I love him. Who she knew like 30 years previously. So like he should know how old she is because they had a relationship like 30 years ago. And the first time he sees her in 30 years, she's there holding a baby. And at this point, Orla Brady is in like her mid to late 50s. And the first thing that this man says to her after not having seen her in 30 years is, oh, like, this is your child. Like, she's holding like a newborn baby. And he's like, oh, like, how's everything with your child? And she has to say, like, oh, no, it's not mine.
Clearly, because
and
I'm
she was
57.
like 57.
Yeah. Which, adoption is a thing, but let's be real, that's not what they were doing. It's
like,
not what
it was
doing
also
here.
like in a post-apocalyptic world where like
Right.
So like he was clearly implying that it was her biological child.
Can we just, for a minute, because we're us and this is Where's Beverly, can we just talk about Moon and Lydia for a minute and a little bit of Into the Badlands and why it's amazing?
Can I just scream into the abyss for like a
Yeah.
little bit? Because like, okay, you start because I can't form coherent thoughts when talking
Okay,
about
so
them.
Moon and Lydia, exhibit B of later in like middle age, later life romance between two people where it's not this hyped up, like, let's like go at it 8 times in the closet today, kind of thing. It's they haven't seen each other in, yeah, like 30 years. They were in love, and then we don't really know what circumstances happened, but they didn't get together. And now they've come together after, this amount of time apart. They're essentially like working as, I don't know that you would say they're enemies, but there's some stuff going on. And he sees her after all this time, and just they lock eyes, and it's everything that you could ever want in like a scene in something where it's just the angst and the anguish of them realizing that they haven't seen each other in 30 years and gasp, they still love each other. And then he recognizes, I'm going to tell it badly. It's been years since I've seen it, but he recognizes her handwriting after 30 years, and it doesn't turn her over to be like killed. And if that's not romance, then I don't want it.
It's just the time it takes for him to like recognize that this is the woman he loved 30 years ago, from that moment to like him being like, oh, I would like, I'm working on the opposite side for her, and I've been told to like bring her in to be killed, but like I love this woman and I will protect her at all costs and I will die for her. That's probably about 30 seconds. Like, get yourself a moon.
But then
Like-
also there's several scenes later where they go into battle, and they're okay. This is like, I know we've talked about like what women want, and they want to die like dramatic Victorian deaths, and we'll get there. Give us a minute. But first, the other thing that women want is they want to ride into battle on a horse next to the person that they love. Okay, this is what women want. Don't question it. It's correct. I'm not wrong. And they get to ride into battle like on horses next to each other, dressed in these like really dramatic costumes. And he tells her to wait and hold the line. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. And it's like a fantasy. And in fact, I'm 98% positive that a woman wrote this scene. It's like Outlander, but without the softcore porn. But he tells her to hold the line, and then she sees that he's in trouble, and she like rides in and like, I think with a crossbow, like shoots somebody, and then they like ride off together, but oh no, she's been mortally wounded. And so he's carrying her on a horse and she's unconscious. And then like he takes her to get help, and he's also been wounded, and he's like, I don't remember, is he like knocking people down to get back to see her? I'm probably telling this terribly.
He's like screaming and crying, and like someone's like sit the fuck down, you have like an arrow in your shoulder, and he's like, how is she? And it's one of those like, it takes like 3 people to hold him down to prevent him from seeing the love of his life. This is what women want.
Yeah. And forget being on opposite sides or simply working together. They've just decided they're just going to take over and rule everything together. It's like ultimate power couple. Also, there's a point where you think you are concerned that they might adopt a child that they don't have permission to adopt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, they also casually steal a baby that they're gonna raise together.
It's so cute.
Like, because somebody, the main character has like the infant son that she was holding, and like it's like, yeah, of all the people that I would trust to like care for my child, it's gonna be Orla Brady. And like, if you see her in the previous seasons, that's a bad decision.
It's a very bad decision. Lydia might kill your kid.
Yeah, like not a good decision at all. But like, she's immediately like, of course I'll care for this baby. And it's very much implied like you're just the babysitter, while the main character goes and like does some vengeance shit. And like the time it takes for her to be like, ah yes, I'm temporarily caring for this baby, to be like, oh no, this is my baby now and I'm raising it with Sherman Augustus, is a frightfully short amount of time.
Yeah, and for a while they're living in this like sort of Downton Abbey-esque like manor house, and like they both get to wear these like long velvety robes, and like because she's been wounded, she gets to walk with like a jeweled cane. I'm just, this is like, I mean, someone ask Orla Brady and then tell us what she says. This has to have been like the best role of all time.
Just and it's like, just a fantasy. Like she gets like a upper abdominal wound, and she walks with a limp. and uses a jeweled cane.
It's
Like this
amazing.
is this is some real like Victorian porn right here. Like this is what women want.
It is. Now, since we're talking about it, would you like to walk us through the Victorian death and the cage fight? Spoilers for anyone who wants to watch Into the Badlands. You may want to fast forward.
Oh wait, no, are we gonna actually talk about that? Do we
Yeah.
want people to be surprised? Okay, yeah. So I'd say skip ahead, what, 2 minutes? Because yeah, like we want you to watch the show. It's an incredible show. Watch it and then email us your thoughts, where's beverly@gmail.com. Like please watch this show. But like if you're on the fence about watching the show and you don't mind knowing the ending, then do not skip, because I feel like what we're going to tell you, and like, yeah, this is a huge spoiler. This is how it ends. I
So
feel
yes,
like
fast
it
forward.
would motivate you to watch the
Yeah.
show.
So we're going to talk about this for 2 minutes starting right now.
Okay. I'm looking at my clock. Okay. So the end, and I'm not talking about the very end of the show. Like the show is good, but this is the end of Orla Brady's character. So there's this character played by Lorraine Toussaint, who is probably one of my
Who's
favorite actresses
amazing.
of all time. I love her. She's also a very specific actress. So she is the opposing forces. Like at this point, there were all these different factions, but they basically all combined together at this point to try and stop the power that Lorraine Toussaint has. So and she's this kind of like priestess, very mysterious woman that hasn't really done anything except for be like really mysterious and creepy in the background until now. Yes. Oh, at this point, Lorraine Toussaint's character has been imprisoned. They've caught her finally, and Lydia, Orla Brady's character, is tasked with going in and killing her. Do you want to continue, Adrienne?
So she goes in, and Lorraine Toussaint's character is in like a cage, and they just start going at it. It's like an MMA. Is that the right term? I don't know. Like cage fight in these like long dresses with swords. And yeah, Lorraine Toussaint stabs her and she dies, but not before Moon comes rushing in and she dies in his arms before telling him to throw his sword in the ocean. It's amazing.
And then after the last time you see Orla Brady in that show is, and again, they're in full out war. Like this is war. They're having a huge war. Time is of the essence. The world could be destroyed. And Sherman Augustus has a elaborate funeral for Orla Brady where he digs a pit, covers it with flowers. Again, we're in the middle of an active war, and buries her in a beautiful shawl covered in flowers. And
Yeah,
makes
she's just like,
everybody involved in this
uh-huh.
war mourn with him.
So again, I don't know that you can continue listening to our show if you don't want to die in your lover's arms after issuing them an ultimatum to seek peace and then be given some sort of pagan burial with a veil and flowers. Like if that's not what women want, and men can want that too. Everyone can want that, but for sure as a woman, this is what women want.
Guys, gals, non-binary pals, everybody, I feel like your goal should be this.
Yeah. So watch Into the Badlands. It's really good. And it's not strictly fantasy. I would say that it's fantasy and sci-fi. I don't know how to explain that. It's a very specific show, and it's excellent.
You know what's also a very specific show? That show where Orla Brady plays an angel and keeps her wigs in a trunk. Welcome to Where's Beverly, where I will never not bring that up. Who the fuck, like, what were you on that you were like, you know what I'm gonna do?
Angel
solving crimes.
Yeah. But again, I feel like this is a little bit of a trend that we're seeing where Orla Brady is in a show and the show's okay or bad, but her character and her character's backstory is so interesting that it could have been its own show. Like I don't care about lawyer angels solving crimes, but you know what I am interested in? I am very interested in a woman who was an angel who gave it all up to be with a man and then he died. Like that's a really interesting story. Give us more of that.
And like, why do you keep your rings in the trunk beneath your bed?
It's dark.
And the rest of the show is just, and I say this lovingly, hot garbage. It's just hot garbage, and she's their housekeeper, Trend, that is not involved in the crime-solving process in the least. But like every episode, there's 5 minutes of her like devoted to her just being like melancholy and saying like really cryptic things that lead to the revelation that again, she used to be an angel, and then she put her rings in a box in order to get the D, and then her husband died.
Time out for what you just said. But anyway, and the thing that I think is actually really, in all seriousness, really frustrating about that is I don't mind a female character being melancholy or giving up immortality to get that D. But I'm glad, I feel like we're starting to see this shift, but for so long, if we did get a woman who was like kind of a main character in a show, it was always like, oh, I'm sad, or oh, I'm a mom, or I'm sad because I can't be a mom, or I'm sad because I am a mom. And that was like all you could be. Or you were a bitch who was not sad that she was not a mom. And you couldn't also, you couldn't be sad that you gave up your wings and solve crimes because that's for the men angels to do. And so I think I'm just really glad that is, thinking back on some of the stuff that's been put out there in the past. It's really nice that we're starting to see more multifaceted men for sure, but men were always given a lot more opportunities to be complex and real and complicated. And I'm just so glad that we're starting to get on a regular basis complicated, complex women. And it makes me really happy because it used to really, really be the exception to the rule. And now it's almost the rule. And I really am just super happy about that.
Yes. Also, welcome to Where's Beverly, a Orla Brady Appreciation Podcast.
We tricked you.
Well, can we say what happened today? Like, we had already planned to record this episode today. And then, Adrienne, do you want to tell our listener what you found today?
Our one listener? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, excuse me. So since I found out there was going to be Star Trek Picard, which has been years in the making, about 2 or 3 times a year, I get on the internet and because I'm a fan, y'all, and I search through the Star Trek Picard tags, whether it's on Twitter or Instagram or Tumblr or Reddit. Those are usually the 4 that I'm looking at. Also YouTube, if I'm being honest. Maybe Facebook that one time. But every once in a while I do this. And so today, as I was making some notes on this show that we were going to record, and then also thinking of maybe some possible other ideas, I thought time to check the Star Trek Picard tags. And I get this, I'm scrolling through and I see this post from this individual, and it says, I'll read it to you. Get somebody who talks about you the way the podcast Where's Beverly talks about Orla Brady. And I died laughing, but I didn't realize they were talking about us until I read it for the 3rd time. I was like, where's Beverly? That sounds familiar. And so I want to say, that's it. We've made it. We're done with the show now. Like
there's no going on from this. Like we've peaked.
Yeah. And then I think the tags were hashtag I'm living for it, hashtag Sophia and Adrienne get it, hashtag Star Trek, hashtag Star Trek Picard, hashtag Where's Beverly, podcast, hashtag highly recommend, hashtag they love Laris, hashtag almost as much as I do Orla Brady. It was fantastic. And if you are that person, we really appreciate, we see you and we appreciate you. And that is, I mean, I can quit now. As far as I'm concerned, we've made it. I'm just kidding. I want screeners for season 3.
If you're in charge of anything to do with Star Trek and have access to screeners, give us them, please. Thank you.
I wouldn't say no to a ticket to the season 3 premiere.
Yes, please.
So
I will dress in full cosplay. I will come in full cosplay.
Bloody tank top 7 of 9.
Obviously. Or just, what's her name? Lenara from the one gay episode of DS9.
That would be such a good premiere. In all seriousness, I know you're trying to be you, which means an ass match, but that would be such an amazing premiere look. So classy.
Oh, it would
so
be.
fancy.
Because it's so regal, too. At any given moment in time, in the back of my brain is just thinking about Lenara from that episode of Deep Space Nine. Bring her back. It's been 30 years. Bring her back.
I haven't seen Deep Space Nine, but I love Sophia, and so please do what she says.
Please send an email at where'sbeverly@gmail.com convincing Adrienne that we need to cover Rejoined as an episode so I can just go gay the entire episode.
Listen, we're going to have to make some sort of trade. I feel like I will do that, and I've got to figure out what I want you to watch with me for us to cover as well. So I'll think about it. But if you send us tickets to the premiere of Star Trek Picard Season 3, Sophia will dress as Lenara, and I will do the Troy look from Man of the People with like the crazy hair and like the sexy purple lame, which would also be an excellent, red carpet look.
It really would. Like the beehive gray hair, though. Like that's like the specific, yes. Absolutely. Man of the People Troy. Like, what are you even doing if you're cosplaying Troy and you're not cosplaying Man of the People Troy?
Yeah. No, I fully intend to do that. That was on my list. I was going to do it for a convention that we're doing in September. But the problem with it, and anyone who has any tips, let me know, is it's so specific that it's really hard. It would be like you had talked about doing Lenara, and it's so specific that you would almost have to pay a seamstress to make this costume for you. And it's not something where, like, the stuff that we're doing that we won't tell yet, we've been able to like put together from stuff that we had in our own closets or stuff that we found on Poshmark or, in thrift shops and stuff like that, with a little bit of crafting and ingenuity. But these are such specific looks, namely like multicolored mid-90s lame, which is a very specific fabric. It's just, maybe next year, guys.
But like, if you invest in that, like, let's say you had to get like a handmade dress to be Man of the People Troy, you could wear that to weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, any grocery store, Starbucks drive-through, open field, slightly damp, a highway intersection, like parent-teacher conference.
So maybe we need to maybe we need to start a Patreon to fund our really expensive cosplay ideas. And I think it would be so incredible, and I'm not even joking, if we went to like actual Comic-Con next year and we rolled in as like Man of the People Troy and DS9 Lenara, like in the head to toe lame, and like fancy jewelry, and the people who would know. And the people who didn't would be sorry that they didn't know what they were looking at. But that would be such a fabulous, just full glam moment.
If you're going to cosplay Star Trek, I feel like the most specific cosplays are the ones that I find just like the best and the funniest. Like, I love any cosplay is good cosplay. But like, I love just like ridiculously specific cosplays. Like, I went to a convention as the goddess of empathy from Hollow Pursuits, and somebody thought I was the mom from Brave, and I've never not thought about that, and it's been 10 years.
That's amazing. We won't spoil it, we have a very specific cosplay that we will share with you guys in September. It is the most specific cosplay I'm aware of ever existing, and I'm not exaggerating.
It involves at least one deconstructed cat toy.
It's a group outfit. We have a friend coming with us. It involves people and also inanimate objects. And that's all I'm going to say. And a deconstructed cat toy.
Welcome to Where's Beverly? Remember when this was an episode about Laris and Zhaban?
Oh no. Oh
So,
no.
Adrienne, where's Beverly?
Oh, well, I'm sorry, excuse you. I have so the other night I because Laris and Zhaban should have had their own show, and I will be forever salty about this. I created a list of shows and movies that I think they should make and they should be the stars of. And can I read them for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's a lot, so get your tea. So this is a TV show, Sex in the Countryside. It's Sex in the City, but it's Laris, Beverly, Deanna, Seven, and Raffi. Zhaban rolls his eyes a lot while bringing them Romulan ale Peril spritzes.
I need this yesterday.
Here's another, this is a movie. It comes out around Christmas time. It's called Bake You Out instead of Take You Out. Laris and Zhaban are owners of a bakery who win the chance to compete in a competition for best brioche being held in a small fairy tale kingdom in the Delta Quadrant. But once there, uncover an assassination plot on the king that's really a ruse to steal Zhaban's brioche recipe and Laris's heart. So it's the Princess
And it's
Switch
shot
guns.
in Vancouver. And airs right after When Calls the Heart. I love it.
But everyone dies at the end. This is another movie. This is going to be released around Thanksgiving. This is called While You Were Disrupting. A fresh new Tal Shiar recruit, Laris accidentally sends one of her fellow cadets into a coma. Devastated and embarrassed she didn't finish him off, she pays him a visit in the hospital to complete the job, but slowly falls in love with his older, sexier brother, Zhaban.
Can we do a whole episode devoted to our love for While You Were Sleeping?
Yes. And Peter Gallagher's eyebrows.
And Peter Gallagher's... Wait, who's the man who plays the brother? I love him.
Bill Pullman.
Bill Pullman. I love Bill Pullman, and I trust Bill Pullman to the point where in Independence Day, where he tells his daughter, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen this movie that aired 30 years ago, where he tells his daughter that mommy's just sleeping when she's obviously dead. When the movie ended, I was like, wait a second. Like, they didn't tell us what happened to Mary McDonald's character. Like, what's going on? And my mom had to be like, she fucking died.
But you believe him so much.
He's like, she said that she was sleeping. So, like, obviously Bill Pullman wouldn't lie to me.
No.
Continue.
Okay. So this is a sitcom. It's called Cashmere and Murder. Laris and Zhaban buy new sweaters and linen and rehide 2,300 disruptors at the chateau. That's it. That's the plot of every single episode. There's a laugh track. It's a multicam sitcom.
I would watch every episode religiously.
We also have the show Cutthroat Cashmere. Now the bodyguards of Admiral Picard by night and vineyard managers by day, Laris and Zhaban moonlight on weekends as guns for hire. They're Cover and Taylor Loft employees. This is their story.
Space and Taylor Loft.
I have two more. Instead of All in the Family, we have All in the Chateau. This is an early 70s style sitcom where Laris and Zhaban argue about how to get yeast to better activate for the bread they're making. How many sweaters is too many sweaters to wear at once? Is number one allowed on the bed? And is the Jot Vache real?
Incredible.
And then lastly, we have Romulan Minds. So glad to have left the Tal Shiar and a life of violence behind them, Laris and Zhaban find themselves unable to ignore a string of seemingly related murders occurring on Earth. This is a limited series coming to Netflix next summer.
Does Paget Brewster also star in it?
You know what? You're joking, but I'm not. She plays Laris' sister. Fight me that wouldn't be a good casting.
That would be excellent casting. And didn't Paget Brewster write on Twitter that she wants to be in Picard?
Yes, she said something after season 1 that was like, I would be in, and maybe I'm misquoting, but I swear on my life, she said, I will play anyone on Star Trek Picard, and I will work for a crate of Chateau Picard wine.
I love it.
And I still want the reboot of Witches of East End. And I want, instead of, although I love so much, oh my gosh, Julia Ormond and Machen Amick. I want them to try it again. Michelle Hurd was in that, by the way. Michelle Hurd's going to be in the reboot as well. But I want Orla Brady to play Joanna, and I want Paget Brewster to play Wendy. And I'm telling you, this would be a good show.
It would be an incredible show. Also, bring back Witches of East End, you cowards.
Oh, that was such a good show. And when I say good, I mean full-on garbage, but also so fun.
It was garbage that I loved and grew emotionally attached to. Adrienne, those ideas for TV shows and movies were all incredible. If our one listener has any pull in in any kind of like creative like media position, Adrienne has lots of ideas that she'd like to share with you, that will undoubtedly make you millions of dollars.
And I just want to point out, it's not too late for them to do this. We could have another Star Trek series that's set before season 1 of Picard, where you could bring back Zhaban. Also, bring him back through science and magic. It's not that hard.
Do it.
Do it. Just give us all of them in stuff. They're amazing.
Hey, Adrienne.
Uh-huh.
Where's Beverly?
So Beverly is in a meeting with Paramount Plus, trying to convince them to produce a TV show starring Laris and Zhaban. And she has said that if they'll say yes, there is a couple of Star Trek podcasters who would be happy to write a spec script. Where's Beverly?
I love it. Well, it's very interesting that you said that, because Beverly is currently starring in a sitcom that is called Zhaban Lasso, that involves a Romulan sport coach. I don't know
What?
Parisi Squares coach, who it gets introduced to Laris, the new owner of a Romulan sports team, who is unknowing to Zhaban trying to destroy him. And the star player is, don't overthink it, Beverly Crusher.
I love everything about this. And I know you're joking, but you're not. Zhaban is totally the Ted Lasso of Star Trek.
He is! And Laris is the Rebecca Welton.
Yes!
Changed my mind.
No! I cannot believe that we found... So we should get, like, ad money for Ted Lasso. But he really, really is. And I forgot I didn't say this, so I'm going to say it now. I think that's what I love the most about Zhaban, is the same things that I love about Ted Lasso, and that he is this really strong, like, secure in himself, like, man who can kill you with a look, but he bakes bread and he cleans up, and he's just really comfortable in his masculinity. And again, I mean, I know we said so much in season 1 of Where's Beverly that we were talking about Riker and Picard and saying there's no room for toxic masculinity in space, and I can't believe that we missed the other really, really, really good example of that, and that is Zhaban. And I think I love him so much. I am obsessed with him. I cried when we found out that he died. He reminds me of Ted Lasso. He reminds me of this German musical theater actor I really like, Thomas Borchardt. He also reminds me of my husband. I'm sorry, but he does a little bit. And I just am obsessed with him, okay? Zhaban Lasso. He's so good. And I'm so sad. So where can the people find us?
Said with such a sad tone. Twitter at Where's Beverly, Instagram at Where's Bev, and of course, our Gmail. Please send us pictures of your cat, fanfic recommendations. Do you think that 3-time Tony Award winner Dee Hoade and Gates McFadden are the same person? Because I do. Google it and then send me your thoughts. Where's Beverly at gmail.com. Additionally,
are you Sherman Augustus who wants to come on our show?
Yeah.
Email us.
Email
Where's
us.
Beverly at gmail.com.
And also, please leave us a review wherever you listen to this podcast. It really helps people find us. And the more cryptic and mysterious your review, the more metaphorical cookies that we will give you.
Yeah. Like anything that's anything like if this podcast were blanket, it would be velvet. Like anything like that is really what we're looking for.
Oh, I was along the lines of like, if you want to accuse us of like stealing your husband or like being
Oh,
witches,
even
like,
better.
like still give us 5 stars if you think we're good, but then like the body of your review can be like, how dare these women?
Any way you can like write a type of review that sounds like you are like the mom of like an evangelicals against Harry Potter group, and you think we are Harry Potter, like anything like that, where you're like, these women are in league with the devil, like that would just be really great. That would make our day. So thank you.
No such thing as bad press.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
You dreamt you were in bed with someone? Frankly, I'm envious.
I did fall asleep reading a particularly erotic chapter in my grandmother's journal.